Hello, beautiful people. Happy Friday. I hope everybody is doing well. So this is your astrological forecast for next week. I'm bringing it up a bit earlier because predominantly I'll be talking about the upcoming new moon in Scorpio, which will be taking place on Monday. So I've decided to switch things around once again, and my practical application of astrology will be coming out next, so that will be probably released on Sunday. So this is astrological forecast, so there is a lot of astrological jargon, so if you are not interested to hear all about this terminology, astrological terminology, then perhaps wait for the practical application of astrology that will be coming out probably on Sunday. However, that is in retrospection, so it's about the week just gone rather than the week that is coming. So as I'm recording this on Friday, I'm actually just going to quickly name the aspects that we have going on over the weekend, because there is quite a lot of things going on. As we know, today Mercury is changing sign. It's moving into the sign of Sagittarius, and right off the bat it's going to make a square to Saturn in Pisces. If you would like to know more about this aspect, then you can check out my astrological forecast for this week, which I released last weekend, where I go into depth about all these aspects. Tomorrow we have the 1111 portal, which is one of the most important portals that we have, even though we have one every month when we have the repeat of the digit of the date, so like 10 10 9 9 8 8, but because it's 1111 is a master number frequency, and it's an opportunity for a huge leap because and there is nothing is lost in the universe, so there is no coincidence that this is happening right before the new moon in Scorpio, which of course is happening in opposition with Uranus. And also Scorpio is all about self-empowerment, about journey towards complete self-empowerment. It's our evolution. So having 1111 portal happening right before, just focus on what it is that you want to create, because for sure there might be all sorts of energy swirling around to distract us, and this is a very, very potent portal. So it's a huge opportunity for us to upgrade, to heal, to release whatever that you would like to release of. So just pay attention to your inner world rather than the outer world, I would say. So tomorrow, which is Saturday, moon will actually move into the sign of Scorpio and start coming closer to the degree where the new moon will take place. And tomorrow also, which is Saturday, Mars will make an exact opposition to Uranus. So this is important because, as I mentioned, Uranus is actually the biggest player of this upcoming lunation. So Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. So Mars will be obviously the traditional ruler of the upcoming new moon in Scorpio, and it's happening in opposition with Uranus. So the exact opposition is happening on Saturday, 2 days prior. And this is a midway point from the conjunction that happened between Mars and Uranus on 2nd of August 2022. So this is the midway, so whatever got seeded at that point, now we're becoming more aware of. There is a point of illumination because of position, and the next conjunction between Mars and Uranus will take place in July next year. So as I said, this is a midpoint, so we might have much more understanding with regards to what it is that is potentially still holding us back and making us feel disempowered. And now Uranus might be bringing things from our subconscious mind, because Uranus is in Taurus. Taurus is very tangible, to help us heal this, because Scorpio is all about deep investigation. It's about the process of death and rebirth. So in essence, we're becoming someone completely different in order to be able to manifest this reality, which would allow us to feel free and able to create whatever we want. So that's what I mean. Tomorrow is a very, very important day. There is a lot happening, but there also might be a lot happening external of you that might be wanting to distract you from this process that is available to all of us collectively. So just pay attention, because there is always a lot going on around. So on Sunday we have moon in opposition with Jupiter, and again, this is just coming closer to the point of the new moon. So new moon is also going to be happening in opposition with Jupiter. And then on Monday, we have this new moon in Scorpio on 20 degrees 44 minutes. Here in Mexico, for me, it's going to be at 3:27 a.m. So depending where you are, in which time zone, you just change it to your current time zone. I know for EST it's going to be 4:27 a.m. and for PST it's going to be 1:27 a.m. And then, of course, for Europe, it's going to be 10:27 a.m. because that's where I was recently. So on the same day, we'll have Sun in opposition with Uranus. So again, there could be something illuminated to us that is actually supporting this new process that we find ourselves in, which is this path of self-empowerment. But the way the things might be coming around might be quite unexpected. And with Uranus, expect unexpected, because Uranus is the Great Awakener. And when Uranus is involved in anything, and obviously this being a new moon, we just cannot really predict what's coming with that. Later on Monday night, Moon will move into the sign of Sagittarius. On Tuesday, we'll have Venus square in Vesta. On Wednesday, we have Pallas Athena square in Pluto. And then on Wednesday, we'll also have Mercury making a sextile to Venus. Mercury is in Sagittarius, Venus is in Libra. And on Thursday, Moon will move into Capricorn. And then on Friday, now the end of the week is going to be busy. And once again, all these aspects which I'm naming are already going to be active during the new moon in Scorpio, because they take time to become exact. But, because of the orbs that we calculate in order to count the aspect, these are already present. So on Friday, we'll have Mars making a trine to Neptune, and also on the same day, on the same degree, 24 degree and 59 minutes, we'll have Sun making a trine to Neptune. And then subsequently on Saturday, we'll have the Sun conjunction to Mars in the sign of Scorpio. So obviously, this means that a new cycle is beginning between the two, between Mars and Sun. And on the same day, Moon will move into the sign of Aquarius. And then on Sunday, we just have Pallas moving into the sign of Scorpio. And then we'll have more aspects coming up later on next week. Of course, Sun will be sextiling Pluto and so on. So let me just see my notes, because obviously I would like to say when it was all last happening. So yes, so the last time Sun made a conjunction, because of course this is a trine, so that's coming towards, it's like the harvest season, it's coming towards the end of the cycle, nearing the end of the cycle. So Sun made a last conjunction to Neptune in March 2023, the next one will be in March 2024, and Mars last made a conjunction to, well, actually Mars will make the next conjunction in April 2024, and last it was in May 2022. So the important thing to pay attention to is, because Mars makes a conjunction to Sun only every 2 years. The last time Sun and Mars made conjunction was in October 2021. And what is interesting about this day is that it was only 2 days later, it was 8th of October, and on 6th of October 2021, we had a new moon in Libra. So this is really interesting, because as we know now, we start in a period of eclipses which are happening between Libra and Aries. Aries, of course, is ruled by Mars, and Libra is all about relationship. And we know that this is the main topic that is playing out for us, even though we are in a Scorpio season. Venus is now in the sign of Libra, and Venus is the ruler. So it's interesting that the last time Sun and Mars made a conjunction was in the sign of Libra, and it was only 2 days later after the new moon in Libra. So there was an energy being seeded, which now we can see that the cycle is ending. So this cycle, we have a Mars and Sun making a trine to Neptune, which means that something is being let go of. Whatever we learned during this 2-year period since that conjunction between Mars and Sun that took place last time in October 2021, this is now ending. This cycle is now ending. We leaving it to God, we leaving it to universe, we are closing the cycle, and a new cycle is beginning in the sign of Scorpio, which is a very different energy from Libra. Scorpio is very deep, it's very introspective, but it's all about self-empowerment, and the true self-empowerment, it will only ever come from within. It will never come from outside of us. So to me, it's fascinating how all this is always piling on the top of each other. There is always a theme that we can pay attention to if we choose to. So anyway, as we can see, there is not overly much happening throughout the week, apart from the new moon, and all the aspects that are present during the new moon will then just become exact either before or after. So let's just actually dive into the new moon in Scorpio, because that's the one that we want to really focus on. So as I already mentioned, the new moon in Scorpio will be taking place on Monday, November 13th. For me here locally, it will be happening at 3:27 a.m. and it's going to be happening on 20 degrees 44 minutes of Scorpio. So as I already also mentioned, it will be happening in an opposition with Uranus, and because Sun is opposing Uranus exactly on the same day, it's pretty much an exact opposition. And because Sun and Mars are also opposing, like literally a few days later, Mars is also playing a role. It's actually in a new phase conjunction with Sun at the time of this new moon. And yeah, it's conjuncting the new moon, and is actually, as I mentioned, the traditional ruler of Scorpio. So it's interesting that we have a ruler of the Scorpio in a conjunction in a new phase with the new moon. And then actually, because everything always centers around the Sun, once Sun and Mars will make a conjunction, Mars will become in a like it will be put behind the Sun, so it will be in the closing phase to Sun. So that's fascinating, because of course now we have a new moon, something new is being seeded, it's a new phase conjunction, okay, we're going in a new direction, and then it will be again about culmination. And as I mentioned just now, it's going to be taking place, the Sun Mars conjunction will be taking place a day after both Sun and Mars made a trine to Neptune. So this is again telling us about culmination, about things that are ending. And again, we have in the sky right now, I mean, there are certain things that haven't changed, which is, for example, Chiron in a closing phase conjunction with North Node. This will continue to be until February next year, when they actually have an exact conjunction. Jupiter still culminating to Uranus, being in a conjunction with Uranus, because well, I mean, now they are in a white orb, so you cannot really class it as a conjunction anymore, because Jupiter is retrograde, so it moved out of the 10-degree orb. But we know that once Jupiter stations direct again at the end of this year, it will start coming closer, moving closer towards Uranus, and then they're going to have a conjunction in April. So again, still things are culminated, story is culminating, and I just, for my own curiosity, since I actually spent 1 hour trying to get all these dates and stuff, and I'm like, I can't even mention them all, because people would get so overwhelmed, like, why is she talking about all these things that already happened a million years ago? So just the one really interesting thing, which I found interesting because I didn't know, because in 2010 my life was very different, it definitely wasn't about astrology. So the actual conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus that is now nearing its end because the story is ending, happened in 2010. 2010, 2011, I believe they had a conjunction 3 times, because they both go in retrograde for about 5-6 months. And the first one happened in June 2010. And yeah, it was actually on 0 degrees on the Aries. Yeah, this is the interesting thing. It was on a 0 degrees of Aries. And what is Aries? Aries is a new beginning. 0 degrees is the unlimited potential. It could be whatever we choose it to be, whatever story we want to create, right? And then, as we know from the spiritual perspective, 2012 was a very important year where everything shifted, like on our planet, everything shifted. So anyway, once again, we're talking about the new moon in Scorpio. Of course, it's happening in an opposition with Uranus. So there is a very wide orb between the new moon and Jupiter. So, you know, like we can class it, because obviously it is a sign opposition, but degree wise, it is kind of like wide. It's more than 10 degrees again, but I think it's still very important, because this is all about stories. This is all about storytellings that are coming to the end. And at the moment, Venus, as the ruler of both Jupiter and Uranus, is in a sign of Libra, which is the sign of her rulership. She will actually make an in conjunction, so a blind spot to both Jupiter and Uranus shortly, especially to Jupiter it will be shortly, because Jupiter is retrograde. So the other aspect, of course, to mention is the Neptune trine from Neptune to, or, you know, like depending which way we're looking at it, but trine between Neptune and the new moon in Scorpio, and Neptune is still retrograde in the sign of Pisces. So this again is telling us about the culmination, letting go, and yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention was the closing phase between Venus and the South Node. So Venus and South Node are going to have an exact conjunction at the end of the month on November 29th. And this is, you can say, a midpoint, because of course we're always looking at the North Node, because North Node is the evolutionary potential. So Venus conjuncted North Node on 20th of March, of course in the sign of Taurus, that she is the ruler of, and she at the time was the ruler of the North Node. So 20th of March was important. Now, why was 20th of March important? Well, because on the 16th, so this was on the 20th of March. On the 16th of March, Venus made a square to Pluto. And then on the same day, Sun made a sextile to Pluto from the sign of Pisces. But the most important thing to mention about the 20th of March, when Venus made the last conjunction to North Node, which means that she opposed the South Node, and now is the other way. Now she is going to conjunct the South Node and oppose the North Node on November 29th. So the most important thing to mention about when that whole thing began was that was just before Pluto moved into the sign of Aquarius for the first time on the 23rd, 23 that was the day, 23rd of March, 23 was the day when Pluto moved into Aquarius for the first time. We know it was there only 5 minutes, but still this is very relevant. So the cycle between Venus and the North Node, that at the time was in Taurus, started only 3 days prior, and now Venus is coming into the culmination to the South Node. So the story is ending now. Again, South Node. Why is South Node so important, and why we keep going on about South Node? It's because she's the resolution node to the squib step. So Pluto squaring the nodes, it's saying about evolution. There is something preventing us in order to go the next level, which in this case is the North Node in Aries, which is this new direction, this new experience, this new way of being, this unknown, this reality that we haven't experienced yet, because the reality as we know it, Saturn, the structure of reality, is dissolving, is falling apart. We can all feel it, like whether it's happening in a tangible reality or in just in our emotional inner world, we all feel it. And now Venus coming in a closing phase conjunction with the South Node that she's the ruler of, because it's in Libra and it's taking place on 29th of November. This is really important, because of course everything is going in cycles, and actually the last time Venus conjuncted South Node was last year on November 3rd, and then we had on November 8th we had the total lunar eclipse in Taurus. So this is a year ago. So it's another thing that I was digging deep into the rabbit hole and got myself lost in, is that literally the last lunation about a year ago was actually the full moon lunar eclipse, which was the blood eclipse, right, in Taurus, that was ruled by Venus. At the time, North Node was in Taurus, obviously, and at the time Venus made a conjunction to South Node last time, literally a year ago and a bit, on the 3rd of November in the sign of Scorpio. And yeah, and that was just before the eclipse in Taurus. So this is how we can see how everything is literally cyclical, and everything is showing us how things are coming to the end, because new things are needing to begin. So once Venus will make a conjunction with the South Node at the end of the month, there will be a new cycle beginning between the South Node and Venus. And South Node is the resolution node to Pluto squaring the nodes, and it's pointing to this Libra thing. Libra themes, relationships, and Venus is the one that is closing that queue. She is the last one behind all these personal planets, because she's one sign behind. We already had, and that's because of the retrograde she had in Leo for during the summertime, for I think it was like 6 weeks or something, right? So we already have in Mars leading the way. Mars is like pointing to until he has a conjunction with Sun. And actually now Mercury is ahead of everyone, because Mercury already made a conjunction to Sun. So we have Mercury, Mars, and Sun all going through the sign of Scorpio. Still, actually, as of this moment, Mercury is in the sign of Sagittarius as of today. But at the time when I was recording it, it was just close, right? So, okay, so Mercury no longer counts. Mercury is now in the sign of Sagittarius, but Mars and Sun are still in the sign of Scorpio, just about to have a conjunction after the lunation. And Venus is trodden back behind everyone, because she's literally having to reevaluate everything, because she's the ruler of the resolution node, of the south node, that Pluto is pointing towards and saying that this is what's tripping you up, this is what's unresolved, this is what we need to focus on. So that's why Venus is diligently, like, literally going over everything, and I'm like, oh my god, you know, like, what is the issue here? And now she's having the conjunction with south node, which started last year just before the full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus, right? So it's crazy. I mean, this might not even make any sense what I'm saying, but to me it's fascinating how all these things are pointing us in certain direction, which is the direction of Uranus, which is saying the change is coming. The change is coming, whether we are ready or not, the change is coming. And yeah, as I mentioned, the conjunction between Sun and Uranus will be taking place in May. There are so many things happening next year, and I mean, there are so many things happening every year, but to me this is literally just a prelude to everything else that's going to be taking place within the next 6 months, because of course it's between the eclipse season, and now Venus and Mars are the rulers of the eclipses again, even though traditionally Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, modern astrology, Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. So yeah, talking about Scorpio, of course, this is where the new moon is happening, and the ruler Pluto is now direct in a sign of Capricorn. It's coming closer to the 29-degree mark again, because it will be moving back into Aquarius in January. And yeah, Pluto is still squaring the nodes. It will continue to do so until the end of the year, until it moves into Aquarius technically. And the good thing that is actually taking place is that Pluto is still kind of within the orb of trine into Venus. It's still within the orb. It's kind of, Venus is coming out of it, but it obviously there was a trine between Pluto and Venus while Venus was in a sign of Virgo, and that is still kind of active. The after effects of that are active. So whatever Venus had learned and accumulated tools about during her transit in Virgo is now being applied, because Venus in a sign of Libra. Libra is an action-oriented sign, because it's a young energy, it's air, so it's our thinking process, it affects our thinking, but it's also, it affects our communication in relationships. And now with Mercury being a sign of Sagittarius, it is potentially helping us to see things from a different point of view, to see the bigger picture of what actually has been going on. And because there is the trine to Neptune, there is an opportunity to see the meaning of that. So, for example, with everything that's going on in the individual and collective experience at the moment, we have the choice, right? We always have a choice. There is always a choice. So we have a choice with the Mercury being a sign of Sagittarius. We have a choice to look at it, you know, from whatever perspective we choose, because of the stories that we are attached to. Are we looking at it from the perspective of, okay, what is this trying to help us to understand? What is this trying to teach us? And what needs to change in order for us to be able to create different outcome, like different outcome of the situations we are experiencing? Because as I mentioned many times, we have the opportunity to make a new choice under the same circumstances, because if you make the same old choice, it's very likely going to lead to the same old outcome, which is why things are coming in circles all the time. You know, we keep re-experiencing the same dynamics because the same choice leads to the same outcome most often, right? So that's why with this opposition to Uranus, and Uranus being a sign of Taurus, which is very tangible, we can feel it very much, but also with the Venus now ruler being a sign of Libra, which is the second sign of her rulership, this is all coming to us, from us, and through relationship. So everything, even though Sun is in the sign of Scorpio, it's still it's still involving other people. It's still about the other people, but this time, because Sun and this new moon, obviously, it's Sun and Moon are in Scorpio. It's reflecting back to us, what is this telling us about ourselves. So we had the opportunity while Sun was transiting through the sign of Libra, when we had all this external experience in all these people, triggering us or bringing whatever they brought into our experience. And now with this Scorpio, it is still connected to other people, but now it's this introspective process. It's no longer about, it's all about you. Now it's about, okay, what does this tell me about me? So with this Scorpio new moon in opposition with Uranus, as I was already saying, because of course we have in the Mars opposition to Uranus tomorrow on the 11/11 portal. There might be a lot of things coming up for us, a lot of things coming up from our subconscious to conscious mind, because of course in order for us to ascend, or whatever you want to call it, I don't want to trigger people with terminology, but whatever we believe, wherever we believe we're heading, even if you just want to use the scientific world of evolution, right? There are things that are holding us back. There are like kind of like weighing us back that are connected to the past, and that's why collectively and individually, and this is something I keep talking about repeatedly, there is this big purge happening, because all these things that are unresolved, whether it's from this lifetime, previous lifetimes, our ancestor lineage, the trauma of our ancestors, the trauma of the planet, the trauma of the collective, all of these things are coming to the surface, and that's why we might be feeling so extremely overwhelmed at the moment, because it's all coming at once. It's literally one thing after another. It's like this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, and it feels like our nervous system is so overstimulated, because we are like being re-traumatized. I mean, I'm not saying this is everybody's experience, but many people are struggling, because it's like we are being re-traumatized, because so many things are being brought to the surface that might not even be your own experience. Like I said, it might be something that has been passed to us through our ancestors, or our cultural and religious conditioning, whatever it was. And with Uranus brings something that is very sudden and unexpected. So there could be just this sudden experience that might bring a lot of stuff to the surface. And then, like, what do you do with it, right? Like in many cases, it could be overwhelming, and we don't even know what to do with this. Like, okay, now I know, like, what am I supposed to do with all this stuff that just came to the surface of our consciousness? So that's why with this opposition, it requires integration. And what is the integration about? Well, Venus is in the sign of Libra, so we need to establish balance. Like with the Libra Aries archetypes being in opposition, obviously now the lunar nodes being in Aries and Libra, it's about balance. It's about, I mean, every opposition is about balance, but this one especially is about relationships. So it's about this finding the new way of relating to one another, where we don't have to keep sacrificing all the time. We don't have to keep sacrificing our needs and values, because, as I mentioned, last year when Venus conjuncted South Node, and then early this year in March when Venus conjuncted North Node, it was all during the time when North Node was in the sign of Taurus. So that was the time of our life, this 2022, January 2022 until July 2023, when it was all about us discovering what matters to us, what are our needs, values, our relationship to ourselves, our sense of self-worth, our trust in our self-reliance, self-sufficiency, or the lack of. And now things are coming like in a full cycle, but at the same time there is a new lens that we can be applying into the experiences, because of all these things that we had the opportunity to learn during this North Node in Taurus transit that took place for 18 months. So now with this Venus being in a sign of Libra, as I mentioned, Libra is a young energy, is a social energy, is an energy of action. So now that we know, and with this Uranus re-traumatizing us and bringing all these things to the surface of our consciousness, all these memories that were frozen in time, then how are we going to apply them into our current experience in order to create a new way of relating? So when there are things coming up in our personal experience, like for example, experiences with people who played an important role in our life and now they might just be disappearing, or we might not hear from them, or they might be befriending us or unfollowing us, or whatever it is, there is an opportunity to re-establish and redefine these relationships. And also, what do we actually seek in relationship? What do we need? Because throughout this transit of North Node in the sign of Aries, it's all about self-discovery. It's all about you discovering who you are. And now Mars being in a sign of Scorpio, it's a very deep investigation. It's Mars is bringing, and I mean now Mercury moved into Sagittarius, but even when Mercury was in the sign of Scorpio, it was bringing up all the fears, all the unprocessed stuff, or all these skeletons that are hiding in a closet. And like, because as I mentioned, Pluto as the ruler, as the modern ruler of Scorpio, Pluto is squaring the nodes pointing to the south node. It's not going away. It's not going away. It will just keep resurfacing. It will just keep reappearing and pushing into the surface of our consciousness, and until we actually use this thing that we are the most afraid of, we transmute it and we turn it into the weakness into the strength. Something that we are afraid of, we'll give it an opportunity to become a path of self-empowerment. So this, technically, to me, it's what this new moon in Scorpio is about, because of everything that's going on in the sky, all these still closing phases, new phases. Sun and Mars are just about to have a conjunction, both of them trine in Neptune, which is again about closing, about Pisces, the end of the cycle. Saturn, of course, let's not forget Saturn. Saturn now, because it's on the 0 degrees, back to 0 degrees of Pisces, is trining this south node in Libra, even though it's out of sign trine, but it's still within the orb, within the 10-degree orb. And like I said, Neptune is actually trining this new moon, because there will be the trine between Neptune and Mars and Neptune and Sun that is supporting us in this process, which is actually on a deepest level, on a deepest core essence of these transits, is this forgiveness and compassion. Because you see, and this is again something that's been coming up for me through my clients and the readings I've been doing recently, when we give to ourselves what we need, and we have this love and compassion for ourselves, because I always say that, well, just look at yourself the way you look at someone that you love, because we have so much love and compassion and patience usually for someone else, not everyone else, but these people that we really love, whether it's your child or something, someone we really, really deeply care about, we always cut them bigger slack that we cut ourselves, but we usually don't have the same level of patience, compassion, and all this for ourselves. But if we learn to have that, just like we have that love and compassion and patience and understanding for this child that you love, or whoever that is, but there is a child living inside of you that deserves the same. And when we do that, when we give ourselves that, then we'll have much more love and compassion to all these other people around us. You know, I'm not saying we don't get triggered and everything is acceptable. I'm not saying any of that, but it's usually how it is. And I can even observe now, which is something that I'm going to be sharing in my practical application of astrology. Like now, 1 week after, since my arrival in Mexico, I have so much more, like I can feel how everything shifted, my energy shifted, the way I'm like responding to situation, like there is so much more peace and calmness, because I've had this week to give myself what I need, and I didn't realize just how depleted I was until I got here, and I'm experiencing the opposite. So this is like the microcosm, but on a macrocosm, really, if people had the opportunity to give themselves what they need, and also to have this love and compassion towards themselves for all that they feel that they are doing wrong, all the mistakes that they have done, or whatever it is where we continuously judge ourselves and beat ourselves up, which we then externalize to our environment. So the more we judge ourselves, the more we're going to judge other people. The more we love and have a compassion towards ourselves, the more it will extend towards other people, because everything is a mirror. Everything is about you. It's the story of your life. It's about you. So now, having Venus coming into the closing phase with the south node that she's the ruler of, and she's also the ruler of Uranus that is in opposition with this lunation. Again, you can just see how everything is connected. We can literally bounce from a planet to a planet to a planet and see how everything is connected. And this is how it always is in life. Everything is connected. So this new moon in Scorpio, it's saying there is something being seeded with regards to your sense of self-empowerment. But in order to find your self-empowerment, we need to be cracked open. So all these things that we are afraid of are coming to the surface of our consciousness, so we can redefine them, so we can heal them, integrate them, let them go, have a love and compassion, like seek healing if that's what we need, because of course Scorpio is very psychological. It's all this kind of shamanistic work, psychology, counseling, anything that is like to help us to reconnect with the deepest aspect of who we are, our subconscious mind. But now with Mercury being in a sign of Sagittarius already for this lunation, Mercury is asking us, like, I mean, Mercury doesn't like being Sagittarius, because Mercury usually likes just gathering information. He doesn't necessarily want to sit with it. He passes on to Virgo, like, hey, Virgo, you deal with this. I don't have time. I just want more information, right? But now Mercury is in the sign of Sagittarius. Mercury actually has to sit with it. Mercury has to really like act in a way like a Sagittarius way, because it's in Sagittarius. It's just like, okay, well, I have all this information now. What is the meaning of this? What is the higher picture? What is the bigger picture? And then because the ruler Jupiter retrograde is in a sign of Taurus, it's just helping you to learn the truth about yourself. So technically, in practical application, there are situations going on around us and within us, in our personal life, in your personal experience, in your inner world, because Moon is in Scorpio, like it doesn't get any deeper than that, right? Which are bringing up all these belief systems, because Jupiter is still retrograde in Taurus. All these belief systems that we are so strongly attached to, because it's Taurus. Taurus is very fixated. It's like, it helped me to survive for all this time, so it still must be something I hold on to. But is it? Is it actually still supporting us? And now with this Uranus, this Jupiter coming into the conjunction with Uranus next year, well, this story is ending. The story that started in 2010, 2011, which is actually just when Neptune was moving into the sign of Pisces, that story is ending. And it started on 0 degrees of Aries. We're creating a new story. We don't know what the story is yet, but there is a new story being birthed. So in order for this new story to be birthed, we need to come up with all this stuff that is preventing us from making this story to take place, to create this story. Because as I said, we cannot go into this new reality, create this new earth, this 5-dimensional ascension process, all these things that people are talking about. We cannot go into all of this if we don't purge the things that are holding us back, all these, traumas, all these things that we are afraid of. If they are still in our subconscious holding us back, then we cannot take them with us, because it's not a frequential match. All this fear, guilt, shame, all these lower vibration, all these lower feelings, which are very important because they still messengers. They help us to understand something, but they don't have space. There is no space for them in 5-dimensional reality, because it's not a vibrational match, right? So we need to purge them. We need to know what they are. And that's why this Uranus is continuously bringing all these unexpected occurrences, which is whether it's in the microcosm or microcosm, where we are being continuously bombarded by all this stuff that's going on around the world, in your personal life, all these kind of things that are falling apart, to bring these things to the surface of our conscious mind, this trauma, these fears, these things we might not even remember, we might not even be aware of, but they all come in now, like even this ancestor trauma, even this post-traumatic stress disorder of the previous generation that were part of wars and God knows what kind of awful situations that took place for our ancestors. That's all coming up right now, because it needs to be healed, because in order for us to create this new story for everyone, including the people that came before us, because we still continue in that lineage, it needs to come up. And that's why it's coming up, and that's why it's so intense, and that's why it's so triggering, and that's why it's so overstimulating and overwhelming, because like I said, if Uranus is involved, and Uranus, it's ruled by Venus, currently in the sign of Libra. Venus is very strong in Libra. It's all about these other people. So despite the fact that everything is happening in Scorpio, with this new moon in Scorpio and Mars being there, Venus is still the ruler of the South Node, and the ruler of Uranus, and the ruler of Jupiter. And like I said, yes, Jupiter is not exactly opposing this lunation, because it's a little bit wide orb, but it is still there, right? The story is still present, the story of the subconscious mind. So yeah, and as I mentioned, Mars is the ruler of Chiron. Chiron is in the closing phase with North Node, Mars being ruler of both. And Mars is being conjuncting the Sun only a few days later, and the cycle will end and a new cycle will begin. And as I mentioned, it's the cycle that started in October 2021 in Libra, under the influence of a new moon in Libra, the cycle between Mars and Sun. And there is no coincidence. Again, everything is pointing us to the relationships and what got us to this point, because yes, like, is it the nurture or nurture, right? Like, were we born the way we are, or do we become that way because of our environment? And then we spend the rest of our life trying to decondition to truly find ourselves. And that's why so many people are lost right now, because they are so attached to these stories and, you know, in a sense, this sense of loyalty to all that came before, that they think that that's who they are, that that's their identity, that's they believe that that is their story. But as I mentioned previously, it's a history, it's his story, it's not your story, it's somebody else's story. You need to decide what is your story. So this is what's coming up for me. And now, like I said, especially with this Mercury now being in the sign of Sagittarius, there is opportunity for learning. What is the deeper learning? Because you see, with this Neptune being involved, Neptune making a positive aspect to, you know, to this Scorpio new moon, we can look at it from a lot of different directions, because, you know, Neptune, even though it is a positive aspect, Neptune always gives us the opportunity for escapism, right? So do we use this opportunity currently to escape, or, you know, even spiritually bypass, you know, because that's also a form of escapism? Or do we actually see the deeper meaning? What is the learning in this situation? Because this is, again, something that I'm trying to help my clients to understand, that there is always something positive in every situation. Even the worst situation in the world, there is always something positive that comes out of it, whether it's the learning, whether it's the warning for the rest of the world, whether it's the deeper realization of what matters, of values, whether it's that person that experienced something tragic, whether it's them becoming the best healer, the most compassionate, loving person that comes up with a technique that will then help other people, whatever it is. But there is always, always, always a silver lining in every situation, even though it might not feel that way, it might not look that way. And especially for people who are involved in that situation right there, right now. But this is a part of the collective story, because as we know, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, there are the planets that are affecting the entire collective. And we have Pluto as the ruler of this new moon, and we have Neptune involved because Neptune is trying it, and Uranus, the third one, is opposing it. So all these outer planets, all these generational evolutionary planets are involved in this lunation. Pluto is the ruler, Neptune is trying it, and Uranus is opposing it, which is telling us there is something of the long collective trauma which is reflecting in our individual and collective experience, which now needs to be integrated and healed and let go of. It needs to be healed, and it needs to be given a compassion and forgiveness to, because otherwise we can't move forward. We can't move forward dragging all these things with us. They are too heavy, they are too weighing us down. And it's like, who is the one that's going to change the pattern? Because we can just keep making excuses and escaping into the story and saying that, oh, well, you don't understand, this is what they did to me, this is what they did to my family, this is what this. But then we're just gonna keep recreating the same story. It will never change. It will never change. Nothing will ever change. So now with this lunation that is taking place 2 days after the portal, 11/11 portal, we have this beautiful opportunity that is being seeded right now. And of course, we'll have more clarity during the full moon in Scorpio, which will be taking place in spring after the eclipses. And then we might have more understanding, because also it will be after the eclipses. So we'll have the full moon lunar eclipse in Libra just before in March. And yeah, there are so many things happening. In February, we have all this conjunction to Pluto, Venus, Mercury, Mars. Everybody's going to be conjuncting Pluto. New cycles will be beginning between Pluto and personal planets. Starting with Sun, that is conjuncting Pluto, still in Capricorn, 29 degrees, 59 minutes. Can't make this one up. Just before they move into Aquarius together. Yeah, there are all these things that are culminating. So all these energies that are being seeded at the moment, including this new moon in Scorpio, are supporting us. They are supporting us, even though it might not look like that or feel like that or be perceived like that at all. But with this Mercury being now in Sagittarius, still being involved, even though it is in a wide degree with the Scorpio moon, but it is still conjunct Mars. You know, it's still within, not kind of, it's a little bit moving away from it, but it's still in that melee. It's still in that melee together with all of them. And Yeah, of course, we still have the Saturn square to Mercury, that is active during this lunation. Saturn square to Mercury, which is actually taking place today as I speak. Saturn Mercury square. And Saturn is again, is the old structure. Are we going to stay attached to the old structure, to how it always was, because there was a time when it kept us safe and secure, because the external authority said so, that this is how it has to be. But now Saturn is in Pisces. Now Saturn is being ruled by Neptune. Neptune is in Pisces, is in his rulership. So again, we have the opportunity to choose the victimhood and say, it's not my fault, nothing to do with me, this is the story, I didn't come. Like this is the one I really like. When somebody points out an injustice or something that is not working, a dysfunctional pattern, and somebody will say, well, I didn't come up with that, it's just the way it is, I don't make the rules. Well, and who does? Who is the one that's gonna make the rules? Somebody has to take the responsibility and say, okay, yeah, I didn't make the rules, but I can change them. I can change the rules. We all can change the rules. So that's why with this Mercury now, as of today, when I'm recording this on November 10th, Mercury is squaring Saturn, and this square is still active during this lunation. What is this telling us? Well, Mercury is giving us the opportunity in Sagittarius to look at the things from a different perspective, a perspective of what is this trying to help me to see? What is this trying to help me to understand, to teach me? Because Jupiter is retrograde in Taurus. What is this telling you about you and the story you are attached to, you fixated on, right? And then Saturn is in Pisces. Saturn is like, well, is this structure still supporting us? Is this external authority? This because somebody said, I don't make the rules, it's just the way it is. Well, who makes them? Because we all make them. We are all creator of this reality. Everything that's going on in the world, individually and collectively, it's a reflection of something we all agreed to. We all put our chip in it and said that, okay, yeah, it can be like that, no problem. Because if we didn't, it wouldn't be happening. And yes, it might be not my personal, choice or whatever, but we are all co-creating this reality on this planet Earth because it's the home for all of us. We are human collective. So so it's coming back to the same story. I feel like I'm saying nothing new, guys. I keep talking about the same stuff all the time because this is literally what's going on. And it's just like, again, with every next lunation, every next aspect, it's just trying to help us understand the same thing, which is that this story of victimhood mentality, of it's somebody else's fault, I didn't make the rules, so we just have to suck it up. This story is ending. Saturn is in Pisces. Saturn is squaring Mercury. Mercury is actually the last quarter square, right? This is a crisis in consciousness, which is saying that we need to let go of this. We need to let go of this way of identifying reality, living by this old story just because of survival, right? Like, Jupiter in Taurus. Do you really just want to keep surviving? Like our ancestors did. They didn't have a choice, so they had to do what they were being told because they needed to survive, because there were no other options. But now we have a choice. Even though it might not feel like it, we always have a choice. And our ancestors are counting on us to change this pattern. That's why Uranus is opposing this new moon in Scorpio. Self-empowerment, facing our fears and do it anyway to break that pattern. We need to break that pattern. And Venus is in Libra. We need a justice. We need justice and balance that allows everyone to be the winner, not somebody to win and somebody to lose, somebody to have everything and somebody else to have nothing. Even though we can say, like, yes, we all chose the experience we are having, so for sure the people that are experiencing whatever they're experiencing, they chose it on a soul level. But now we are approaching times in our evolution where this will no longer be good enough for, like, okay, it's okay for somebody else to suffer or have a bad time. So we trying to now find a balance where actually there don't have to be people that are suffering and struggling and people who feel like they have to lose so somebody else can win. Because especially in the war, there are no winners. There are no winners in the war. There are no winners. So anyway, guys, so I think I'll leave it at this. I will have my collaboration with my good friend Adrian, where we're going to dive into the actual chart so you can see what I'm talking about. But in a nutshell, this is what I'm tapping into. And as I said, the rest of the week, next week, after the eclipse, I keep wanting to say eclipse, I don't know why, after this new moon in Scorpio, everything will be just, after effects, right? Because it's a new moon, energy is being seeded, and as I mentioned, that is happening right on Monday. What a beginning of the week. We start in the week with the new moon in Scorpio, no other, just Scorpio, right? And Sun opposition to Uranus, exactly. And then, like I said, there is just this Mercury sextile to Venus. So obviously that's a supporting aspect that requires us to take an action. So, okay, what are we learning that we're now going to apply to our relationships? Because it's not going to happen on its own. And then, yeah, like I said, the most important is the end of the next week, Friday, Saturday, when we'll have the exact trine between Mars and Neptune, Sun and Neptune, and then the Sun-Mars conjunction, which will end that cycle, which I mentioned started in October 2021 in the sign of Libra, just after the new moon in Libra. So this is practically what's happening. So even though we are no longer in Libra season, you can see how this Libra is still affecting us, especially because Venus, as the ruler of the resolution node, south node, is in a closing phase conjunction with the south node, which is going to happen exactly at the end of the month, right after the full moon in Gemini. Isn't that interesting? Because what is Gemini? A choice. Gemini is all about choice, about the seeing, the multidimensionality, and all these different timelines you can choose to experience. Because are these things happening? They are. They are happening for everyone? No. Because you have a choice to choose your timeline. We are co-creating all these different timelines. So why choose just the ones you don't want to experience? Let's focus on the ones that we do want to experience. So anyway, guys, I could go on forever. There are so many depths and layers we can go into this, but the bottom line is there is a new energy being seeded, which is going to support us on our evolutionary path, ready or not, like it or not. Uranus is involved, expect the unexpected. There might be a lot of stuff coming up from your subconscious to conscious mind, which might not be feeling very good at all, but it's a process of integration. It's an opportunity for healing that which is not going to support us going forward. And in order to purge it, to heal it, to clear it, we need to see what it is. And we need to tend to it, like just like a wound. If we ignore an infection, it's going to spread and then it's going to get much worse. So that's pretty much what it is, right? Okay, I can hear that there is a lot of noise going on around me. I'm really sorry. There is nothing I can do about it. This is Mexico. There's Mexico, and you cannot influence the external environment. So I'm gonna leave it at this, guys. I hope that there was something of a value in this video for you, and yeah, I will, like I said, record a collaboration with my friend Adrian, where we'll be looking into the astrology into the chart and talking about that. And of course, I'm sure Adrian will have a lot to add from her own experience and point of view. So stay tuned for that one. That video will be coming out on Monday, because we recording it on Sunday. So there is a lot to look forward to this weekend. And like I said, most and foremost, tomorrow is the 11/11 portal. So focus on what do you want to create. Focus on how it will make you feel to have that experience that you want to experience. Maybe for this day, turn off the social media, turn off the television, because I can guarantee there's going to be distraction, something going on out there that is wanting to pull you away from this opportunity to walk through this portal that has so much to offer, so much. So send you all much love, guys. Enjoy the 11/11 portal, and yeah, all the best of luck to all of us for the upcoming new moon in Scorpio. Much love to everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.